Hey everybody, Jabman025 here. Today I'm taking a look at my 122nd Master Grade, the Double Zeta Gundam Ver-Ka. I know a lot of people have been waiting on this review. Sorry it took so long. This is a long, complicated build, so it took a little while. Side note, I add some new lighting for this review. It took me a little while to get it right, so the first part of the review, the lighting's going to look a little wonky. By the end, it makes sense. So bear with it. Sorry. Now, I give you two core fighters, as so. Clear landing gears. If you want it to look perfect, you gotta paint the landing gear, but again, big whoop. One of the core fighters will be used in the transformation. The other one is just a add-on. Give you a second one. Two pilot figures each, except they jip you on one pilot figure later, but I'll talk about that. But one thing on this kit, and right off the bat you notice in the core fighters, is this is a long build. Takes a while. Just the core fighters alone took me a couple hours. And two, nubs have to be cut clean. It says, cut out cleanly. Your mantra for this kit. There cannot be any nubs. There cannot be any hints of any nubs. There cannot be any shadows of any nubs. You have to clean this thing super clean as a whistle. Because this kit fits together very tightly. Everything lines up just so. And there can't be a hint of a nub, or it doesn't line up just so. And here you see the torso. And the first thing you'll notice on this is the new silver we have here. You have the silver in the vents and some peeking out through the top. The best way I can describe this silver is, you remember the Hyaku Shiki version 2.0 and that gold? There's the same thing in silver. Very metallic, very machine looking, and it's very nice looking. And here you add on the head. I'm not a huge fan of this head. It's too big for the neck. It doesn't pose very well. And the V-fin is kind of a pain in the butt. It keeps getting knocked down. It moves down for the transformation, but as you're moving it, you'll bump it and move it all the time. And there's a big gap where the red piece hooks into the V-fin. It's a trade-off you make for the transformation later, but I'm not a huge fan of that. Arms, however, are great. Big, sturdy arms, giant forearms, tiny little biceps, big old giant shoulders, and these big red binders on each side, which I thought would be a pain and get in the way. They don't. They don't even hamper it in the least, which is really stunning to me. Again, silver pieces poking through on the arms, and especially on the shoulders. Interchangeable fingers on these hands. And one thing you notice about the hands is the wrists. As so. Pegs. Simple plug and play. The wrists do not move. They're locked. You can turn the hands sideways or what have you, but they are locked. This is used to hold up the giant weapons this thing has, which I'll show you in a bit. Now, the legs are extremely complicated. Some of the most complicated builds I've ever done. This is all for the transformation. These are one of those kits. It won't make any sense when you're building it. What am I doing? What? Just follow the directions. Everything lines up. I was talking about the silver piece earlier. You can see there, I did have one break on me. I think the silver pieces are a little on the fragile side. A little glue cleaned it right up, and unless I point it out to you like I just did, you'll never notice. Again, back to the legs. You can see there's a track lining up, so you put this section, which is like the side of the thighs and the knee. It slides up into the top. It's really screwy, guys. It just is. It's going to take a little getting used to on building this thing, and the transformation, too, is kind of weird. Add on the hips and the side skirts and the front skirt armor, and the tail, for all intents and purposes, we'll talk about in a second. Nice and sturdy legs. Are big, giant, and really complicated, like I said. The tail, if that's what we want to call this, is for the backpack. Although it's not a backpack. It's a butt pack or a tail pack or whatever. It actually doesn't connect to the back. Now, I decided to do the decals at this point. By Ver-Ka standards, it's really not that bad. There's a bunch of decals, as there are on all Ver-Kas, but I was expecting, unicorn, Sinanju level decals. Not even close. I did get the foil sticker, or foil metallic decals, all water slide in this case. And those are coming with the initial release of this kit, if you got one of the early releases. Added on there. The backpack builds around that tail section and then hooks into the back through that little peg you saw. So it's kind of a backpack. Sort of. in a weird way. Does that make sense? I don't know. Add on all the decals. Like I said, I didn't use a lot of the metallic foil ones, but I used a few here and there. Some people told me they were having big issues with those decals sticking. Not really with me. In earlier reviews, I've had told people you don't really need to do the bonder on the little decals. On a transforming kit, yeah, you do. The whole thing, everything. Put on the arms. Again, good decals. There's a ton of decaling on these binders here. Lots of pinstriping, lots of lining. So, again, that's another reason to do those arms and do those pieces before you put it on the kit. There's so much stuff on this kit, jutting out and going all which different directions. Doing the decals once it's all built is just not practical. Even if you built the whole thing, you'd have to take it all apart to do the decals. So just save yourself the aggravation. Size comparison. He's a pretty big kit. Here he is next to the 2.0 RX-78-2. He's big, but he's not the giant I think a lot of people are making him out to be. Putting him next to a giant kit here, you see Sazabi still dwarfs him. Double Zeta is a big kit, but he's not a monster kit like some others are. Accessories, double barrel beam cannon that's also a ship. This wonky, crazy thing can be held up just fine. Shoulders are super tight. Like I said, the wrist is locked, so it's not going to drop it there. Elbows are super tight, super lock. Hold it up, pose it up, any way you want it. Despite those crazy legs and all that junk going on down there, it'll hold it up just fine. The backpack is big and huge. Doesn't really affect balance. This is why this kit is really amazing. All the stuff that's going on with this kit, and it can still pull off some really cool poses. The BAB, Big Ass Beam Saber, it can hold this thing with ease. No problems whatsoever. A big giant handle, big monster blade. The reason it could do that is it has this open style set of fingers with this huge tooth on it, which connects into the handle. And once it's holding onto it, it's never going to drop it. In fact, getting the hand off the handle is kind of tricky once you change it out. So, no problems whatsoever. Transformation is weird, but you can do it. Moving the feet down, adjust the heels. You pull these latches here and you pull them all the way in. This creates a track for the knee to slide down and flip the entire leg around. As so. So now the top is the bottom, at the bottom is the top. The foot's up there by the knee joint, or the knee, and the front of the knee is down at the bottom with a thruster. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. But it can be done. And once you have it all flipped around, some landing gear pops out of the top of the knee, which is now the back of the kit, in a weird, confusing sort of way. There is connection for the backpack, which moves down and hooks into the bottom of the legs, which is now the back of the kit. And there is two connections to make each of the legs hook together so they're never coming apart. Does that make sense? Open up those panels and it shows all those missiles inside. The top half is a little easier to transform, but still complicated. Move the chest out, flip it up over the head. You've got to move those V-fins down. The hands come off, and you can replace them with these tiny little hands if you want. The standard hands are just too big for this transformation. If you want to be a stickler, you can flop them out, but you don't need to. You can just leave them blank. Open up the panels, flip the thrusters around. Now, this thing is a little on the fragile side. You move it a little too much and things start popping off and moving. That you can put this thing on an action base by itself if you want. You can have it its own flyer. The giant beam rifle ship thing transforms, flips around, hooks onto the front, and you got this big front flyer. Now you can hook this whole thing up to this giant train thing here. One thing I did do wrong, someone pointed out on Twitter, the beam saber should be on the outside of the wings, big whip, whatever. When this thing's all done, it's over a foot long. It's gargantuan. I mean, it's like a train of Gundam. It's crazy. The transformation on this thing is complicated, crazy, but it all works. As big and complicated, as wacky as this thing, the transformation works. Is it as bad as 2.0 Zeta like I feared it was going to be? No. 2.0 Zeta is still the most complicated and aggravating transformation there is. This is a close second, but it works. Just like the 2.0 Zeta does work. It's just complicated, aggravating, and tough to do. This is complicated, aggravating, and tough to do. But when all is said and done, transformation works. It looks really good. I don't know how often you'll transform it, but it works. Final thoughts on this kit. I'm giving this kit a huge thumbs up. There's so much stuff going on with this kit. The transformation, the build is so complicated. This is an expert class build. If you haven't built any Master Grades before, this isn't a good one to start with. This is a very complicated build. It's very difficult, and it's long. It will take, if you're marathoning this thing, I'd probably drive you nuts. I had to take a couple breaks on this thing. But when all is said and done, transformation works. This thing can pose very, very well, which stuns me. It can hold up all the accessories. They're all good. The detail on this thing is amazing. The decals are great. Basically, this is a transforming kit that's also a great poser, which I didn't think was possible. I didn't think you could make a good transforming kit and a good poser kit. Bandai, you proved me wrong. Well done. This can pull off tons of different poses on the ground, in the air. Lots of great accessories. Transformation works. Thumbs up, ladies and gentlemen. Your winner for Master Grade Kit of the Year 2017, Double Zeta Verka. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you found it informative. If you have any questions, please ask them. I will answer them as best as I can. I know a lot of people were waiting on this review. I do apologize if it took a little longer than you were hoping, but like I said, long, complicated, difficult build, but it was worth it. Great kit. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time. Oh, and one more thing. One thing I forgot to mention is a good chunk of this kit is undergated. Why would you need to undergate a Double Zeta?